Hello guys, what's up? My name is David and welcome back to my channel. So, if you live in the Netherlands as I do, you might have heard about planned budget cuts to higher education institutions like universities. And as a student of a humanities course, which is also pretty small, I study Scandinavian studies, this budget cut will affect me and my university life. So I would like to talk about it, and I want to stress why humanities and small like region or language studies are important to keep anywhere, not just in the Netherlands. So education is an important element of Western but also other cultures. And yet the importance of right teachers, teaching material, possibilities for students are kind of neglected by a lot of governments because they feel like they have other better things to spend their money on, which then causes a lot of problems. And for example, in the Netherlands, studying at university is already pretty expensive, and it is already cheaper for Dutch citizens or people who with a permanent residence in the Netherlands. I believe my own tuition is like 2,200 euros a year, while exchange students have to pay a lot more. But still, it poses a paywall for higher education, meaning that some people who might have the ability to go study at university are not able to do so because they're not rich enough, which is already a problem in itself. But now the new right-wing government is proposing even more budget cuts for higher education, which generally tends to mean budget cuts for humanities, because in many countries, humanities are undervalued and seen as not really useful or important study programs. And as someone who studies humanities, I'm like, why? Because first of all, I think humanities can be pretty useful and are very relevant to the world that we live in, but also this idea of having to study something that is somehow useful and somehow directly contributes in a very obvious way to society is a very capitalistic view of universities, and that is how the Netherlands views its universities. It sees them as companies that have to produce more and more skilled people who can then contribute and participate in Dutch society and on the Dutch market. And that is understandable, but also it means that the actual level of knowledge and skills that you get is not for the sake of getting skills and knowledge, but for the sake of being a useful citizen. So I personally do not plan on staying in the Netherlands. Since I study Scandinavian studies, I'm planning to do my master's abroad and probably move to Scandinavia, but it still affects me since I currently live here and have lived here for most of my life. And I really don't like this idea that you have to be a productive member of society. It's very, very, very capitalistic. And obviously, this is a Western European country, so obviously, liberal market capitalism is going to be the driving factor for a university. But I personally do not believe it should. So, yesterday, I was helping at the open day of my university as a representative of my study program, and basically you have to just stand there and wait until people come up to you who are interested in your study program and ask you questions, and then you have to answer them. So a lot of people ask like, okay, but what can you do with this? And I think there's already a problem with this approach, because while it is good to know that you have career opportunities after a studies, doing something to be able to do some kind of work is not always the best option when choosing a study, because you might think that one option will give you a better job, so you go to study something that you don't actually enjoy doing. And of course there is the question of like, should your enjoyment of your studies be important, or should you actually try to be as useful to society as possible? Well, that depends on what your moral values are, and whatever you choose is perfectly fine. But I have heard from a lot of people that they start a another study, like for example, they start business and economics because they think that that will get them a better job and that will make them more useful, so they go study that. And then after a while they realize that they actually don't like what they're doing and they would rather do something that they actually enjoy, and then see how they can contribute with that or combine it with their other interests in business and economy and make something out of that. So they stop with that study or they start another study simultaneously, and they like that more. So I think this inherent need to be useful and contribute is something that is taught to you when you live in a liberal market capitalist society like the Netherlands. And sometimes it takes a while to realize that you actually have other possibilities, that you are allowed to want something else. But for me, choosing a degree that actually aligns with my interests was a very simple choice. But I am not everyone, and my experience is not everyone's experience, so I am definitely understanding and open to other people's experiences. And if someone believes that their purpose in life is not to do what they want but to be useful to the society that they live in, then that is also perfectly fine. I think that if you choose a study that you like for yourself, you will be able to contribute better, if that is what you want, because you will be doing what you actually enjoy doing, and you will be helping in a way that you want to be helping. For example, if I want to pursue Viking Age related research, I feel like I will be contributing to that research and that community of researchers and people interested in the Viking Age. And well, it seems like something ultra specific. Because it is so specific, it is easier to find a specific purpose in it than a very big field where there's a lot of competition and a lot of people doing the exact same thing. And again, this is my personal view of what my priorities are and how I would like to help, but I still feel like this needs to contribute to a liberal market capitalist society is something that is told to you by this liberal market capitalist government. And if you agree with that strategy of that government, then I think it's fine. I am not a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not going to say like, don't do what the government tells you. I don't think everything every government says is inherently questionable and wrong. There's always going to be people who agree with the government's policies. And if you do, then that is great, and that means you live in a place which corresponds to your needs. But that generally also means you're a cisgender heterosexual white man with a high education, because that's what most Western governments still tend to. So if you're a queer person, if you're a woman, if you are a person of color, if you want to be highly educated but you come from a working class family, then your needs in this world and what you look for in your higher education will be different than the average white man. And I know that I am a white man, but I have not always been seen as a man, and I'm still not always seen as a man in society. So I know how that is. And I didn't even want this video to turn out as a rant against capitalist forces, but I feel like that is the biggest driving factor when it comes to budget cuts for higher education. It's people who decided that universities, and especially humanities, are not useful enough, are not contributing enough to get more money. And even while I personally don't believe contribution to society and usefulness is the most important thing ever, I also feel like humanities does contribute in a very big way to society, like art, cultural institutions, cultural heritage, history, books, education. It's all relevant. And there are contributions being made to how society works by humanities programs. But I think this contribution is not as direct as, for example, a scientific discovery. So it is just more difficult to see how these studies are contributing, which is why I think people should be more interested in humanities and what people actually do there, instead of saying that these courses are not important and don't deserve funding. So if you are someone who wants to go to university in Europe, or specifically in the Netherlands or whatever, I don't think you should be scared of these budget cuts, because there is a lot of pushback against it, not only from students but also from higher officials. Like, there's going to be a protest of all Dutch students on next Monday. So people are fighting for the right to have a right education for them. And obviously higher education is not for everyone, and it shouldn't be, but it should be available for those who want to pursue it. That's everything that I have to say about this, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any thoughts, please let me know down below. I would love to hear what other people think about it. And if you're specifically interested in what I do, then check out my other videos, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.